Hello, beautiful friends. Welcome to the Soul, Frequency, and Flow podcast. I'm your host, Jen Haddix. I'm a spiritual business coach, sound healer, yoga teacher, and guide, and I'm super passionate about helping humans live their most authentic life. This podcast is your space for heart-centered conversations about healing, embodiment, stepping into your power, and creating a life and business that align with your unique mission and gifts. You have come here to share your magic with the world, and I want to help you do exactly that. Each episode will explore transformational topics. I'll share powerful tools, and we'll dive deep into what it means to be a human on earth at this time who is here to create impact and live an amazing and abundant life. So grab your favorite drink, get nice and cozy, and let's vibe. I'm so excited that you're here. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be back and podcasting. As some of you may know, I used to have a podcast a few years ago called the Self-Love Yogi Podcast, and then I rebranded and just haven't gotten back into the podcasting game since then. So I've been really called to do this. I'm very, very excited to be here, and thank you so much for being here and for tuning in. And so this first episode, I'm just going to talk a little bit about my story and introduce myself, let you know what I'm all about, and then share a bit about my mission and what the podcast is going to be about, and then maybe give you a little bit of insight into upcoming episodes. So my story will probably come out in more pieces over the course of the podcast, but to keep it kind of short and sweet for this episode, I started sound healing a few years ago. I started teaching yoga back in 2018, and my spiritual journey began, I would say, back in 2016 when I was at my lowest point ever and was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And that was when I met my first healer, my first teachers, and kind of had my eyes opened to this world. And I've gone through healing process after healing process ever since then. I started teaching yoga in 2018, and that, of course, opened a lot of doors to different spiritual modalities, and yoga itself is a really beautiful healing tool to tune into things that you didn't even realize were happening within you. I got the download a few years ago to buy some crystal singing bowls, and I have a background in musical theater. I've taken voice lessons for most of my life, and I really have a love for music, and I couldn't figure out how to incorporate music into my current work, but I knew that because it was such a big part of who I was, it was missing, and it was something that was trying to come out of me. So I got this download to get some singing bowls, and my first reaction was, I don't have the money for that. I don't know how to play singing bowls. I'm not really sure about all this, but the message kept coming and it kept coming. And so I spent the last money that I had on a set of singing bowls, and the yoga studio that I teach at opened up the space for me to do a sound healing, and the rest is history from there. And here I am, and I've facilitated over 150 sound healings. I now certify other sound healers. I incorporate singing into my practice and help others find their voice, and it's been a really beautiful journey. But what I really want to share here on this podcast, not just from me, but from the guests that I'm going to have on this podcast, is all of the different lessons and healing that you go through to level up and become the next version of who you are. And it's never ending. We're always leveling up. We're always expanding. And so with that comes uncomfortable times, and times that we need to look at parts of ourselves that have been stuffed down for a really long time. And so over the journey of healing and entrepreneurship that I've been through over the past decade, I've really learned a lot about what it means to heal in order to show up as your highest timeline version of yourself in your life, in your business, and in the way that you create impact and make a difference in the world. And now I know if you're listening to this, you may not be in a space where you're like, I am ready to make impact in the world. Maybe you are more worried about yourself, and that is completely okay and exactly where you're meant to be. Healing yourself is how the world becomes a better place, and you don't have to be focused on everybody else. I, in fact, hope that you are focused on yourself in this moment if that's where you need to be. But when it comes to my mission and what it is that I hope to accomplish through my business and through this podcast and through all the different ways that I show up in the world, is I truly believe that so many of the world's problems and struggles and pains can be solved by entrepreneurship. So hear me out. I think that all of us came here with unique gifts, talents, and medicine that only we have. And we came to Earth to feel the contrast, the polarity, to create what we want, to feel what we don't want, and to bring those unique gifts and talents forth so that the people who have come to Earth to connect with them can see them, feel them, hear them, and participate in them. And so I really think that what that takes is healing so that we can show up authentically as exactly who we are. So remember when you were a child, and I know this is really cliche, but you dance like no one's watching, you sing like no one's listening, you run around, you say whatever's on your mind, and then the world conditioned you to be a little bit more quiet, be more respectful, make sure you show up like this, make sure you do this. This is how we do things here. And slowly but surely, your essence and your authenticity is stripped from you. And it's by no fault of anyone. It's just the way that this universe has decided to be in this time right now. The collective has kind of decided that that is how we do things. But if you're listening to this, it's very likely that you are a change maker and you are here to shake things up. And that essence that you brought into the world as a child is truly who you are and who you came here to be. And so a lot of the work that I like to do is to help you strip back the layers that have been put on you by other people, by society, by outside sources, and slowly strip those away so that we can show the world who you came here to be and exactly who you are in all of your beautiful magic and authenticity. So in my space, authentic expression is of the utmost importance and one of the most magical things that you could ever work on. And being your authentic self will help you create better boundaries, which will help you have better relationships, which will help you show up in a way that feels really good to you and aligned with your soul. And if you do not have a business or have no aspirations at the moment of having a business, that's okay. It will still up-level you in every area of your life. But if you are a business owner or an aspiring business owner, that authenticity will make showing up so much easier. It will make selling not even feel like selling because you will just be sharing what is naturally on your heart, and the people that want to hear what you have to say will naturally magnetize toward you. Now, I do say this a lot in my business coaching. We still use some of the techniques that have been decided on by the collective, certain marketing techniques and funnels. I do try to stay away from FOMO and bro marketing, because I really think that if you're connected to your soul's purpose, your soul's mission, you're speaking authentically, you're really feeling yourself, you feel really embodied in who you are, those things are going to come a lot easier, and the people that are meant to be in your space are going to just naturally want to be there. However, we do need to get ourselves out there, we need to get ourselves seen, and that is a lot of what I work on in my coaching space. So on this podcast, that is a lot of what I'm going to be talking about, but as many of you know, and some of you who don't know me will find out, I have a tendency to just kind of follow the whispers of my soul and allow things to unfold naturally. So while I know a lot of what I'm going to be talking about here, I don't know all of it, and I'm going to let it show up and present itself to me and to the podcast as it needs to. And as I evolve and as I learn, as I grow, I will be sharing all of that with you, so that if any of it resonates and helps you, you have access to that information and those healing tools. And so forecasting to some of the future episodes, some of the things I do know that I want to talk about and that I currently have in the modules of my 12-month program that I just opened, Sacred Leadership Academy, which I will share with a little bit about at the end, is two things that I'm really passionate about sharing are inner child work, which I am going through some deep shit with right now, and I love it, and it's also very hard, and also shadow work. And so the foundation of everything that we do in our lives comes from, like I said earlier, you came into the world as a bright, beautiful child with magic and medicine and something to share, and it got kind of beat out of you by society. Connecting with that inner child and listening to them and uncovering those parts of you that you've buried for a long time is essential to your movement forward, whether it be in life, business, or otherwise. And then shadow work, really starting to love the parts of ourselves that we stuff down, that we hide from the world, that we feel ashamed of, that we feel guilty of, and bringing those forth and loving them and just really approaching everything from a space of love will also completely change your fucking life. So that is actually something that I'm going through right now. And I love that I'm doing my first episode while this just came into my space. But I have a dear friend that I connect with every single day, even though I've never met her. She lives in New Jersey, but we met each other on Instagram, and I call her my biohacking bestie. We do a lot of different programs together to work on health and meditation and all these things. And something that she recently shared with me was a video by Teal Swan, where she asks you to ask yourself in every moment when you're making a decision, when you're thinking about doing something, when you're thinking about how to respond to someone, when you're thinking about what you're going to eat or where you're going to go. The question being, what would somebody who loves themselves do in this moment? And asking yourself that every single time. And that question, which I just learned like 3 days ago, has already completely shifted my reality and brought me into a new season of healing that I didn't even know I needed to go through. And so I wanted to share that with you, but that's something that is going to come up in this podcast. And then, like I said earlier, Sacred Leadership Academy just opened, and the 4 pillars of that program really is the 4 pillars of what embodies my entire business. And so the 4 pillars being healing, embodiment, leadership, and the impact that we create in the world. Those are 4 things that I'm going to dive into on this podcast. And I also really love to have open-hearted conversations with guest speakers. So I'll be bringing on people who can talk about those things and bring new perspective and a fresh light to all of this work. And also, a big part of my work is being a mentor and a guide to others. If you are familiar with human design, I am a projector. I am a 5/2 self-projected projector, which is why I love podcasting. And as a projector, I am here to be a guide and to help guide energy. And so I really love collaborating. I really love lifting up people and showing them their magic. And so in my physical business, my business is half online and half in person. So I've got a following in my city. I live in Reno, and I have a lot of people in my space for retreats and sound healing and cacao ceremonies. And I do sound healing certifications, and I create almost like a mentorship energy around my certifications. So I allow the people that come to my certification to come to my sound healings and assist me, introduce themselves, share their offers. And so on this podcast, I intend to lift up my clients, and if they so desire, they can come on my podcast and share their unique magic, because I want to use any influence and energy that I have to lift up as many people as possible. So that is also a really big part of my mission. For the most part, I'm going to keep these episodes pretty short and accessible. When I have interviews, they will likely be longer, an hour to an hour and a half, but the solo episodes I'm going to keep to about 20-30 minutes so that they're not too overwhelming. I always think of Joe Rogan's podcast and how they're 3 hours long, and I love them, but sometimes 3 hours just feels so overwhelming that I don't even bother. So I would like to make this podcast something that is very digestible and giving you little small pieces of healing and information as you can absorb it. And so with that, I just want to thank you so much for listening, and I want to leave you again with that one tool that I just recently learned, which is as you move through your day, as you make decisions, ask yourself, what would somebody who loves themselves do in this moment right now? And just notice how your reality starts to shift. So again, thank you for being here. So much love to you. Don't forget to subscribe and share. And there's lots more episodes coming. I can't wait to connect with you in this space, and so much love.